Well, ladies and gentlemen, actually a very important day in politics because we have to address the elephant in the room. Why is the mainstream media talking about the possibility of a coup in South Africa? But before we get on to the main video of today, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Really does help. Share the video with some friends, ask them to comment on it. Comments help fantastically. Share it on WhatsApp groups and so forth, and just hit the bell icon. I can't really ask for more. So before we get on to the main video of today, let's actually talk about the president's budget speech. So for those of you who don't know, the presidency actually issues a budget. Who knew? And Ramaphosa was there to, well, deliver his budget in terms of what it is he was exactly aiming to achieve. And so he gave some key strategic outlines. The first was that he says that the budget aims to equip, to align government efforts, set strategic directions, and oversee implementation across all his departments. That's really nice speak for saying that basically his budget is there to try unify government in a way. Then he says that he's there to promote inclusive growth and partnerships anchored in the GNU. His top three priorities were inclusive growth, job creation, and poverty reduction. Now, the presidency says that he backs major initiatives, including Operation Vulundile and the District Development Model and the Infrastructure Coordinating Commission. Now, if you've heard all of that before, well, that's because it's pretty much the same thing he says all the time. Remember that really inclusive growth he defined as being, BE and women and disabled children, all sorts of weird rubbish. I mean, job creation is a joke because, to be frank, we've got job reductions in South Africa. Let us not forget that we have the possibility of 100,000 jobs being lost due to, well, the tariffs that are coming in on the 1st of August anyway. So anyway, he says that he aims to boost investment. He's there to mobilize investment. And he emphasized this idea of this working partnership, both the public and private sectors, in order to drive economic development. And to be frank, we've heard a lot about these public-private sector partnerships. It's like the new communist language for expropriating wealth from the private sector and getting them to provide all the services that the state's unable to do. He then went on to say that he wanted to advocate for the global south. And this is the idea that really Africa needs to start, well, interacting with its neighbors and empowering the neighbors and others to trade with each other. In typical fashion, he cited the district development model as a tool for aligning national, provincial, local governments, with eThekwini cited as a positive example, although I don't know if he's actually been there recently because it ain't looking that great. But in any case, let's actually move on. So then he said he reaffirmed the independence of the presidency. And the reason that he was doing that is because obviously we've got a GNU and he's an ANC president. So effectively, is he just an ANC president with everybody else tagging on, pushing forward ANC policy? Well, he says he's independent. He says that the president doesn't implement public services directly. It maintains executive coherence and coordination. So that's how he sees his role, as being a facilitator, if you will. Except the problem is he doesn't actually do what he himself says. The president also invoked his constitutional authority to establish such inquiries as the police commission, which is currently investigating the whole palaver that's gone on with the police minister and the police commissioner, and he defended the necessity of this commission amid media criticism, such as my own. In any case, he then upheld democratic integrity. He loves to talk about this stuff. So he reinforced the strength of parliamentary debate, even though, let's face it, like parliament's debate is useless. You got the MK party acting like clowns, so I don't know what parliamentary debate he's talking about. He says that even when parliamentary debate is contentious, and he cautioned against sweeping claims of government accountability failures, even though everybody knows that his government has failed. He then also highlighted, in typical fashion, the GNU. He says 1 year in, he says that the GNU, comprising 10 political parties, has sustained itself through many disagreements and that they are functioning in pursuit of collective goals. This obviously after the DA says they were going to leave 50,000 times. And according to the president, this was actually democracy in action. He says that the vigorous but civil exchange in Parliament was presented as proof of democratic health, allowing constituents to judge their representatives. And to that, I would say hogwash, because we've all seen what debate in Parliament looks like. It looks as the EFF going point of order. As of today, time of recording, an MK party member was like streaking in Parliament like it's a giant clown show, to be frank. In any case, that was the president's speech. In typical fashion, everybody took their usual swipes at him, and that was the end of it. So let's actually go then on to the other news. The first news we need to consider is, why is there talk of a coup? And coup fears have resurfaced in political discourse, amplified by South Africa's new national security strategy. And so this strategy lists violent protesters, insider threats, economic sabotage, and disinformation campaigns as growing risks to the Republic of South Africa. Now, Ramaphosa, during his budget vote, which I've just talked about, actually downplayed the coup threats, but acknowledged the increased security risks, calling for institutional resilience. Now, this is often expert quoted in Times Live, dismissed the notion of a military coup as unrealistic in South Africa, given South Africa's democratic norms and fragmented security environment. So according to a Times Live expert, well, this talk of a coup, which I must highlight, has come from the ANC's government, and as I said, apparently it's from this new national security strategy. Apparently, this expert says, well, it's all hogwash. However, the tone of the national security strategy and recent events, such as the Zuma-linked 2021 riots, and obviously now we've had the whole KZN police commissioner debacle, with the commissioner going on TV with individuals dressed in what can only be described as military type dress, has made the public nervous about institutional instability. And this has led some DA MPs to accuse the government of trying to delegitimize political opposition by portraying these criticism as destabilization and talk that could potentially amount to a coup. So according to the DA, that's why we are now hearing coup talks, is because people are criticizing the government, and well, the government wishes to censor that and drown out the criticism of the ANC. So moving on to the next topic of the day, and that is the national dialogue. Because Ramaphosa claimed that the National Dialogue Initiative, meant to address social and political fractures, won't just be a talking shop, which is what we all fear it will be. And we know it will be that because we've had Zondo and how many other commissions, and they're always talking shops. But in any case, he says that they will all result in practical commitments. He urged all political civil groups to join, including opposition parties and civil society. But you see, the problem is, and the reason that many people don't want to join, is because we all know what this will be. It is the ANC's attempt to electioneer prior to the 2026 elections. That's what it's going to be. They're going to bus individuals in, they're going to drown out any opposition voices, and everybody's going to know going there's a waste of time. Anyway, critics remain skeptical, pointing to past dialogues that yielded little change. So many to pick from, really so many to pick from. And the dialogue is being launched amid rising economic hardships, crime, and racial tensions. Racial tensions being led by the ANC, because obviously it's great to push on BEE and all the other stupid bull rubbish that we've all seen collapse the country and not grow the country. And this obviously has led to many suggesting that the national dialogue is nothing more than a distraction tactic. And that's because it is. Now, talking of a distraction tactic, who actually is it that's being appointed to the National Unity Project linked to the national dialogue? Well, it would appear that it is Fatima Solomon, the daughter of the Gift of the Givers founder, which has raised the ire of some Jewish leaders, including Chief Rabbi Goldstein and members of the SA Jewish Board of Deputies. And you may ask yourself the question, well, why? And that is because Solomon has actually been tasked with leading or being one of the co-leaders of the National Dialogue, and now he's appointed his daughter. Strange. Anyway, the reason why his daughter specifically has become problematic in terms of her appointment is because she has in the past made posts minimizing October 7th and the Hamas atrocities, including claims that the babies that were beheaded were, and I quote, lies. Now, critics have argued that her inclusion in the national dialogue will actually undermine national unity. as it alienates large segments of the Jewish community who see her as basically being, well, anti-Semitic. Now, Ramaphosa and the ANC have not addressed this outrage directly. These concerns rest by individuals such as the chief rabbi, and this has sparked forms of political criticism that the ANC is, and I quote, tone deaf. And this again is why many individuals are worried that the national dialogue itself will end up being nothing more than a talking shop that only wants to discuss or provide messages that are deeply linked to what the ANC wants to project. Anything that is contrary to that, well, it's not going to see the light of day. And so everybody looks at this and says, well, must be a waste of money. Talking of a waste of money, Finance Minister Edel Godongwana has assured foreign investors that South Africa is committed to fiscal consolidation and improving its sovereign credit. Now this obviously after everybody's withdrawing their cash. A lot of people are withdrawing their cash, well, because of the tariffs that are due to be incoming. And a big problem for South Africa now is actually trying to attract investment. And somehow South Africa needs to attract credit in order to carry out a lot of its programs. Now, its programs, such as improving infrastructure, are vitally important to the nation's prosperity, but nobody actually wants to raise the money and provide them as credit to the government. So the government says, don't worry, we are curbing debt, we are fighting corruption. These are a few of our examples, and all of this should reassure you, credit agencies and global credit markets, especially in the BRICS and G20 environments, that South Africa is open for business. Now, the problem is that everybody else is looking at ANC economic mismanagement and going, we don't really want to give you our money, because the likelihood is that actually we're not going to get our money back. And you're not going to get those vitally important infrastructure projects because you're going to steal the cash. So, yeah, I think this is a waste of your time, Enoch. No one's listening. Now, talking of a waste of time and nobody listening, the Reserve Bank governor also issued a blunt warning. And this blunt warning was that as economic conditions are worsening, reforms are urgently needed. At the G20, it has been highlighted that Trump's tariffs and geopolitical tensions, all these issues are making forecasting monetary policy in South Africa almost impossible. He says that in South Africa, there was a distinct lack of structural reform and growing political uncertainty, specifically as the DA says it's going to come, it's going to go, and the ANC says we want to chuck out the DA and we don't, and whatever else goes on. And he says that this itself makes actually providing a stable destination for credit or investment foreign-wise into South Africa, it's almost like impossible. And he says that this itself should be considered a huge risk in South Africa as South Africa starts to enter a stagflationary period. Now, what a stagflationary period is, low growth, high inflation, rising debt. And this should be obvious. As stagflation is approaching, we are expecting low growth because of the job losses from AGOA. We are expecting high inflation as the money supply in South Africa starts to disappear. And lack of jobs means, well, lack of tax. Lack of tax means rising debt. And all of these things mean, well, South Africa should effectively be, as we've highlighted already in the other segments, highly uninvestable. Now, moving swiftly on, if you watch my video over the last couple of days, you will notice that one of the questions that we addressed is, where is Special Envoy JONAS? And this was all highlighted that JONAS had apparently been rejected by the United States by the DA's MP Emma Powell. Now, Emma Powell has recently been on a US trip, and allegedly, according to the ANC, she spoke highly critically of South Africa's economic failures, failing infrastructure, and corruption. And this has led the ANC and some ANC-aligned civil society groups to accuse her of economic sabotage and spreading negative international images of South Africa. I mean, she didn't really need to do it, guys. Like, you guys do the job just fine. Now, Emma Powell defended her remarks as facts-based and argued that it's the government's own policies that are harming investor sentiment. Not anything that she's saying, she's just saying what's happening on the ground floor, and everybody should notice that. Anyway, The whole thing reflects a growing battle over South Africa's international narrative between the ANC and all those in opposition to it. The rest of us are trying to highlight what the actual problems are, but time and time again, the ANC wants to gloss over it and to redefine it and basically say that everyone else that's highlighting the issues in South Africa must be lying. And it's because of this that everybody is now looking at Cyril and saying, Cyril lacks any form of effective leadership, he is sabotaging the country, and he appears to be ineffective when it comes through to any reform in the country. He's always talking about reform, he's always talking about prosperity, but what he always ends up giving to the public is just nothing more than inefficiencies. And this is leading to a perfect storm. The perfect storm obviously being economic fragility, institutional mistrust, heightened political theatrics, and what we are seeing is that there is a rise of public anxiety, all being caused by the ANC and their ineptness, their ideology, their lack of unity, the division that they seem to keep causing. And overall, this is leading many individuals to ask, what is the political future of South Africa? And whilst that political uncertainty remains, it should be a given that South Africa remains an uninvestable place, because politically, South Africa is problematic. At least that's my views. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until Monday, bye.